Anyone who grew up watching TV knows the golden rule. Nothing is cooler than giant robots combining to form an even bigger robot. It's the classic Power Rangers approach to problem solving. And let's be honest, everyone loves it. But let's face it, whenever a reboot of some old 80s franchise gets announced, we all brace ourselves for disaster. Thankfully, that's where Voltron Legendary Defender comes in, the exception that proves the rule. What Netflix and the creators behind Avatar: The Last Airbender pulled off here wasn't just a tribute, it was a full-on reinvention. Behind the vibrant colors and mechanical lions lies a layered story about war, politics, family trauma, and real consequences. What starts off like a lighthearted space adventure starring 5 misfits quickly escalates into a dramatic space opera that might just break your heart by the end. It's that rare blend of nostalgia and genuinely mature storytelling. So buckle up, because today we're diving into how this animated series managed to be both a masterclass in action and a gut punch of emotion. 3 astronauts are exploring a moon of Pluto, thinking they're about to make history by collecting ice, but they end up starring in a far from friendly close encounter of the third kind. A massive Galra Empire ship appears and abducts the trio. 1 year later, back on Earth, we meet Lance, Hunk, and Pidge, 3 cadets who fly so poorly they make any intern look like a seasoned pro. Their instructor makes it crystal clear. They are an absolute disaster. That night, the trio curiously follows Pidge to the roof and witnesses an alien ship crashing. Inside is Shiro, one of the abducted astronauts, now sporting a Winter Soldier-style bionic arm. Before the medics can take him away, Keith bursts onto the scene. He's Lance's rival and rocks that classic 80s mullet. Keith rescues Shiro. The rest of the gang invites themselves along for the ride, and they make a break for the desert. Following Keith's intuition and some strange energy readings, they find a cave housing a giant blue lion. Lance hops into the machine, which reacts to him, and they go blasting off into space, pulling everyone through a wormhole. They arrive at a space castle where they meet Princess Allura and Korin, who have been taking a 10,000-year nap. Allura explains that they need to reunite the 5 lions to form Voltron, the only robot capable of defeating Emperor Zarkon, basically the Thanos of this universe. The team splits up on RPG-style side quests to find the other lions. Hunk and Lance nearly die. Pidge uses jungle camouflage, and Keith has to infiltrate an enemy ship solo to retrieve the Red Lion. With all the lions gathered, Shiro takes command as the Black Paladin. But their first fight is a total mess. They get beaten to a pulp until Shiro gives one of those motivational sports movie coach speeches. Finally, they manage to combine into the legendary Voltron, destroy the enemy ship with an energy sword, and accept their fate as the defenders of the universe. The hero life isn't all glamour and explosions. The team is jolted awake by a false alarm because Allura and Korin decided it's time for intensive training. The problem is, these 5 together have less coordination than an amateur soccer team playing blindfolded. They try to form Voltron but fail miserably, falling apart and crashing every single time. To help, Allura activates the castle's defenses, turning the training session into a fight for survival. Korin, trying to be the galaxy's Mr. Miyagi, suggests trust exercises and even a mental link. Obviously, it goes sideways. Hunk starts poking around Pidge's mind and their focus goes out the window. Tensions run so high they're practically ready to throw hands. After getting thrashed by a gladiator robot, they're forced to eat dinner handcuffed to one another. The mood is sour until someone throws the first potato, or equivalent space goo. An epic Breakfast Club-style food war breaks out, and it's in that mess that they finally click. Laughing and covered in food, they race to their lions and, guess what? The synchronization finally hits, and Voltron forms. Moral of the story: nothing unites a team like throwing food in a friend's face. While Allura tries to play diplomat with some cute local aliens, Shiro is having heavy gladiator-style flashbacks. He remembers his time as a prisoner, forced to fight in an arena. The problem is, his memory is fuzzy, and he believes he harmed Matt, Pidge's brother, to save himself. Things get dark, but there's no time for therapy because a giant monster, a roe beast created by the witch Hagar, descends upon the planet to destroy everything. It's a classic kaiju battle. Voltron jumps jumps into action, but the monster is brutal. Mid-fight, Shiro recognizes the creature's fighting style. It's the same gladiator he faced in the arena. Using that memory to his advantage, he coordinates the team. Keith summons the blazing sword, and they slice the monster down to size. With the dust settled, the moment of truth arrives. Shiro pulls Pidge aside and tells her what really happened. He staged the fight to save Map, who was sent to a labor camp, not killed. And the big reveal? Shiro knows Pidge is actually a girl named Katie, who disguised herself to find her family. He promises to keep her secret, proving he's the leader everyone respects.
Father would be proud of you, Katie.
The party is in full swing at the castle, Star Wars finale style, but Shiro is stuck in nightclub bouncer mode, tense and expecting the worst, and for good reason. Sendak, a villain with a permanent scowl, is lurking nearby. Meanwhile, Lance tries to look cool by drinking an alien juice that tastes like hot dog water and stinky feet, and naturally, he passes out instantly. The mood shifts when Pidge decides she's quitting the band. She wants to go look for her lost father and brother, dropping this bombshell on the team. Keith, who takes the whole Defender of the Universe thing way too seriously, loses his cool, leading to a tense locker room style argument. In the middle of the drama, an infiltrated drone blows everything up. Lance, in a rare moment of heroism, throws himself in front of Corrin and gets knocked out. Result, the castle is powerless and defenseless.
Lance?
Sendak invades, thinking he's already won. Shiro tries to hold the line with his bare hands, literally, as a Winter Soldier-esque mechanical prosthetic brawl ensues. But the villain plays dirty and takes the unconscious Lance hostage. Shiro is forced to surrender. It looks like game over, but Pidge, who is on her way out, decides to return and hacks the system, frying the ship's engine before they could take off with Voltron in the cargo bay. Hunk and Corrin end up on a side quest to a planet that is actually a giant living creature, the Balmera. There, they meet Shay and Rax. Hunk, who usually only thinks about food, decides to become the resistance hero to save the day and the girl. Meanwhile, back at the castle, it's pure die-hard tension. Pidge is alone against the invaders, sabotaging everything through the ventilation ducts. We get a flashback showing Pidge is actually Katie, and that she hacked the system to get into the academy just to find her family. Back in the present, her drone, Rover, sacrifices itself to save her skin, blowing up along with a generic henchman. Outside, Keith and Allura finally manage to get in thanks to the space mice, who deactivate the barrier. Inside, Pidge uses holograms to mess with Sendak's head, but the villain is too strong. Just when all seemed lost, Keith wakes up from his beauty sleep and blasts Sendak in the back, sending him flying. The team freezes the villain in stasis, and Pidge decides to stay, delivering a classic Fast and Furious line about the importance of family. Lance finally steps out of the healing pod, and the first thing the team does is argue over the semantics of time, completely ignoring the emotional moment Keith thought they shared. Hunk is locked in and wants to head back to save the people of the Balmera. Before they leave, Pidge gathers everyone for the big reveal. She's a girl. The suspense falls flat when everyone except Lance admits they already knew or didn't care. Lance is left in shock, proving he's the slowest one in the group.
I'm a girl.
What? You're a girl? How?
On their way to the rescue, they stop to help a broken-down ship. We meet Rolo and Naima, aliens with a serious knockoff Han Solo vibe. Lance, flattered by the female attention, takes Naima for a ride in the Blue Lion. Terrible idea. She pulls a fast one on him, chains him to a tree, and steals the lion with ease. Keith has to go on an insane high-speed chase through an asteroid belt to get the ship back. In the end, they recover the lion, let the thieves go, and Lance is left there, chained to the tree with his ego more bruised than his pride. The team is focused on liberating Shay's people on the Balmera, but the strategy meeting essentially turns into a competition of who can make the best laser sounds with their mouth. Seriously, Hunk, more smitten and motivated than a rom-com protagonist, reminds everyone that the Balmera is a living planet and they can't just go in guns blazing. It's got a major Avatar vibe. You have to respect nature. The plan is total stealth, but of course, it goes south. While Pidge plants Metal Gear style sensors, Lance and Keith continue their classic rivalry over who's the better shot. Lance even saves the day by freezing a falling tower, but wastes time gloating. The real trouble starts when they realize it was a trap. Shay was used as bait, and the team ends up trapped in the planet's core. Outside, things get grim with the arrival of a massive Galra warship that makes the castle look like a toy. The Paladins have to rush to their lions, and Shiro pulls off the most Fast and Furious move of the season. He leaps from a moving speeder directly into the Black Lion midair. Insane. They form Voltron, Hunk uses brute force, and the castle delivers a finishing blow to the enemy ship. It feels like a win, but Zarkon is persistent and sends another pod to ruin the party. You know that gift you hope is cool, but is actually just a problem. The pod opens and out comes the most bizarre monster yet, Drazil, a robeast covered in laser-firing eyes. It's basically a Resident Evil nightmare. The thing is so overpowered that Voltron takes a beating, and they're forced to hide in the planet's tunnels, playing hide-and-seek while their shields fail. Allura decides to head to the front lines to convince the locals to evacuate, but ends up becoming the leader of the revolution. She channels mystical energy and rallies everyone to fight. Meanwhile, Hunk unlocks a cheat code for the Yellow Lion's weapon, a shoulder cannon with auto-aim that locks onto all the monster's eyes at once. Total insta-kill. But the cherry on top is Allura performing a magical ritual that heals the entire planet, turning the gray landscape into a neon light show. The planet itself, now healthy, traps the monster in giant crystals. By the end, Hunk is so happy he starts petting the ground like the planet is a giant golden retriever that just learned a new trick. Keith can only feel the secondhand embarrassment. The moon at the castle has turned into a space horror movie, Event Horizon style. Allura is dealing with her grief by talking to her father's AI, but the ship starts acting like the haunted house in Poltergeist. Hunk goes for a snack and ends up wrestling the food machine, which spits goo at him in a scene straight out of Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. Lance, as per usual, gets the short end of the stick. He gets stuck in a cryopod and then nearly ejected into space, screaming like a slasher movie protagonist. Meanwhile, Keith has to deal with a training robot that flips into Terminator mode and tries to end him for real. And Shiro? The poor guy is hearing the prisoner Sendak's voice in his head in what feels like a heavy psychological thriller. Korin discovers that a Galra crystal corrupted King Alfor's AI, turning Allura's father into a malevolent version of HAL 9000 who wants to fly the ship into a star. To save everyone, Allura has to make the hardest decision of her life, delete her father's memories. It's a heartbreaking ending, with her destroying what's left of him to ensure Voltron's future. Heavy stuff. Pidge digs through Sendak's memories like she's looking through an old thumb drive and discovers a secret Galra base. Allura, tired of sitting on the sidelines, decides she's going on the infiltration mission, and she's not messing around. Using her Altean genes, she shifts her height and skin color, becoming a purple version of X-Men's Mystique. Shiro goes as her +1, since his bionic arm is basically a master key for enemy tech. Meanwhile, the rest of the team lies in wait, and Keith, ever restless, chases down some druids carrying tanks of a suspicious yellow liquid. Korin explains that it's quintessence, the magical juice that's kept Zarkon alive for millennia. Keith gets into a scrap with a druid and takes a hit of dark magic to his hand, which burns and turns purple. But in a twist of fate, Pidge's ship knocks a tank of quintessence onto him, and his hand heals instantly. Keep an eye on that moment. It reeks of important foreshadowing for the team's resident emo. Shiro and Allura's stealth mission naturally goes sideways. They're discovered and race for the escape pods. In a dramatic scene, Allura realizes they can't both make it out and sacrifices herself, shoving Shiro into the pod and surrendering to the Galra. The leader escapes, but the princess is now a hostage of the Empire. With Allura captured, the team enters suicide rescue mode, but as soon as they arrive, Zarkon activates a barrier, and any Star Wars fan knows that's a classic trap. Voltron tries to fight back, but Zarkon and the Witch Hagar forcibly separate the lions. Shiro is ejected from the Black Lion and takes a magical beating from Hagar, only to be saved at the last second by Allura, who had already broken free, and Hunk. Then comes the plot twist that leaves everyone jaw-dropped. Zarkon tries to seize the Black Lion and reveals that he was the original Black Paladin. The guy is basically the Darth Vader of this story. Keith tries to play hero with the Red Lion, but Zarkon is just too OP. Using the Black Bayard, he swaps weapons instantly, humiliating Keith. Before the villain can finish the job, Shiro regains control of his lion and saves the day. The castle can't open a wormhole to escape until, out of nowhere, a Galra commander betrays the Empire and shuts down the barrier. They try to jump into hyperspace, but Hagar hits the portal with a blast. The result? The wormhole becomes unstable and spits each lion and the castle out into different corners of the universe. The team is scattered and lost in space. The situation is critical. Keith and Shiro crash on a desert planet that looks like a Mad Max set. Shiro is badly injured after the fight with Hagar and can barely walk. To make matters worse, there's a giant reptilian monster looking to make them a snack. Keith has to race against time, use the Black Lion, and save the leader before he becomes lizard food. Meanwhile, Allura and Corrin are stuck in a bizarre time loop in the middle of the void. Corrin starts de-aging like the curious case of Benjamin Button. He becomes a rebellious teen, then a hyperactive kid, and ends up as a baby. Allura has to figure out how to fix time before her advisor vanishes for good. As for Pidge, she landed in a space junkyard with a total Wall-E vibe. Lonely and bored, she starts talking to some cute aliens and builds scrap metal replicas of her friends, like Tom Hanks talking to Wilson in Castaway. But being the genius she is, she uses an old satellite to hack the system, finds the castle's signal, and manages to coordinate the rescue of Keith and Shiro. In the end, the team slowly reunites, but the danger persists. Zarkon promotes Lieutenant Thace to commander, unaware that he was the one who helped the Paladins escape. There's a traitor in the high command. While the rest of the team is living through their dramas, Lance and Hunk have fallen to the bottom of the sea in a total Little Mermaid vibe. They encounter mermaids and are taken to meet Queen Luxia. It's a gala reception with a banquet that looks like it's out of a Studio Ghibli film. Hunk, who never turns down a meal, digs in and ends up hypnotized by a performing octopus. The two are so enchanted, they decide to quit the hero life and live there forever. But the party ends fast. Lance is rescued by underwater rebels who explain the queen is a trap. To avoid falling under the spell again, Lance is forced to wear a jellyfish on his head as a helmet. A look so ridiculous even SpongeBob wouldn't wear it.
That means it's working.
So what's the plan?
Trying to recover the Blue Lion, he's attacked by Hunk, who is completely brainwashed. Lance's solution? He chucks an antidote fish at his friend's face. Zero subtlety. With the duo reunited, they discover the plot twist. The villain isn't the queen, but the garden itself, which uses the mermaids as food. In a battle against a giant sea serpent, the Blue Lion unlocks a new power-up, a Sub-Zero style ice beam from Mortal Kombat. The monster becomes a popsicle. The queen says thanks by sending a flare into space, and Pidge shows up to give them a ride home. Back at the castle, the mood is heavy. Shiro emerges from the healing tank with fresh memories and drops a bomb. Zarkon was once the Black Paladin, and Allura knew all along but kept quiet. The tension in the group is palpable, but they have to follow the coordinates left by Dr. Ulas. Their ship is boarded by a Galra ninja who looks like he stepped out of an 80s action movie. The hallway brawl becomes a spectator sport, with Corrin narrating every blow like a UFC commentator. When Shiro finally corners the intruder, he discovers it's Ulas himself in disguise. He reveals he is part of the Blade of Marmora, a secret resistance within the Galra Empire. They head to a secret base where Ulas promises info on Pidge's family, but Zarkon gives them no rest and sends a new row beast after them. Voltron gets hammered, and the only way out is a heroic movie sacrifice. Ulas gives his life by ramming his ship into the monster Independence Day style.
It's falling in on itself.
In the end, while everyone processes the loss, we see Keith in his room staring at a knife bearing the symbol of that secret Galra society. The mystery deepens. While repairing the castle, some space spores lead the team to a planet inhabited by the Olkari, a race of brilliant engineers. The place is a mix of tech and nature, very much in the aesthetic of James Cameron's Avatar. They've adapted machines to work in harmony with plants. The problem is that King Lubos, the local leader, is a sellout. He traded his people's freedom for comfort and is building a super weapon for Zarkon. Team Voltron tries to stop it, but the weapon is a bizarre cube that learns and copies their attacks like the board from Star Trek, only more annoying. Pidge, as usual, carries the team on her back. With the help of the Olkari, she hacks the connection with the Green Lion and unlocks a new ability, summoning giant roots that the cube can't copy. The weapon is neutralized and the Traitor King is deposed, but there's no time to celebrate. As they try to leave the planet, they run smack into a Galra war fleet blocking the way. Team Voltron is more burned out than a college student during finals week. They try to take a nap and eat some transparent blue cookies Hunk invented, but Zarkon is like that annoying telemarketer who calls all day. He finds the team wherever they hide. To make matters worse, the wormhole generator is busted because the lenses broke, and Corrin caught a bizarre disease called the slipperies, which makes his body secrete a super slick fluid. It's gross, but keep that in mind.
Turbine and figure out what's going.
paranoia hits Allura hard. She believes she's the GPS Zarkon is using to track the castle. In a desperate attempt to fix the generator in the middle of a cosmic storm, Pidge realizes the chemistry of Hunk's weird cookies is identical to the broken lenses. That's right, the salvation of the universe depends on alien cookies. The plan is insane. The Paladins have to manually hold the generator inside the warp tube. And guess what? Corrin's disgusting slime serves as the perfect lubricant to get the contraption working. With cookies in the engine and old Altean goo in the gears, the castle slides away from Zarkon in a spacefaring fast and furious escape. Their next stop is Taujir, a planet being stripped bare by Galra Commander Morvok. While the villain exploits resources and imprisons the population, Allura and Keith take a road trip. Well, a pod trip. They head out alone to try and figure out how Zarkon keeps finding them, leading to a philosophical debate about whether there are any good Galra in the universe. The rest of the team tries to help an art full of civilians escape, but Zarkon shows up again to ruin the day. The situation becomes critical when the Ark nearly falls into a lake of acid. This is where Hunk shines. The Yellow Lion gets a massive upgrade, turning into a literal metal Superman, holding the giant ship up by hand to stop everyone from becoming acid soup. Keith and Allura, who managed to destroy their pod, congrats guys, need a lift. The Red Lion goes into space to retrieve them. And finally, Voltron forms to give the Galra ship a thrashing. Back at the castle, the penny drops. The tracker wasn't Allura. Zarkon was using his old mental Wi-Fi connection with the Black Lion to follow Shiro. Mystery solved, but the problem remains. Now that they know about the mental spyware, Shiro stays at the castle to try and change the Black Lion's Wi-Fi password in a psychic battle. Meanwhile, Corrin takes the rest of the gang to a swap meet to buy new lenses for the generator. Corrin sells the place as a den of danger, so everyone dresses up like space pirates, looking like low-budget cosplayers. The surprise? The place has turned into a shopping mall exactly like the ones on Earth. The group separates and chaos ensues. They're chased by a mall security guard who is pure Paul Blart. Keith tries to find the origin of his knife and discovers it's made of an incredibly rare metal. Hunk ends up cooking at a diner to pay off a debt and becomes a local celebrity. Meanwhile, Pidge and Lance find the ultimate treasure, a retro video game console and a cow. Yes, they buy a cow named Kaltemecker. While the gang flees the mall with the lenses and the cow, Shiro faces Zarkon on the astral plane. The villain tries to dominate him, but Shiro strengthens his bond with the Black Lion and kicks Zarkon off the network. Now, invisible to the enemy, they set a course for the Blade of Marmora HQ. The only tragedy? Lance and Pidge realize they bought the game console but forgot they don't have a TV in the castle. Arriving at the Blade of Marmora HQ, the location is a pilot's nightmare, squeezed between black holes and a giant star. It's basically the final level of an impossible game. Keith and Shiro enter the base to try and forge an alliance, but the reception from leader Calivan and his right hand Antok is cold. The problem is that Keith is carrying one of their special knives, which creates immediate tension. To prove he deserves to be there and get answers about his past, Keith must pass the trials of Marmora. The rule is simple: knowledge or death. Keith goes full John Wick mode, facing multiple fights while growing increasingly exhausted. Things get psychological when he has a vision of his father and must choose between staying in a comfortable past or leaving to save the universe.
If you go out that door, you'll never find out who you are.
Outside, the Red Lion senses its pilot is in danger and starts attacking the base on its own. Realizing he needs to set his ego aside, Keith gives up the fight and sheathes the knife. At that moment of humility, the blade activates, turning into a purple lightsaber and revealing a soap opera-worthy plot twist. Keith has Galra blood. While the group processes this genetic bombshell, the traitor Commander Thace warns that time is running out. The team splits up to farm resources for the final confrontation. Hunk and Keith take the Yellow Lion on a buddy cop-style mission to find a Weblum, a giant space worm that produces essential crystals for the ship. The problem is that Corrin's instruction video is more corrupted than a file downloaded from LimeWire in the early 2000s, so they'll have to improvise. The duo literally enters the belly of the beast in a sci-fi Pinocchio vibe. Once inside, side, they get separated. Keith heads for the stomachs, and Hunk ends up being carried away by the creature's bloodstream. Keith finds a trapped ship and frees a mysterious Galra pilot who doesn't say a word. When everyone reunites in the third stomach, the worm's immune system starts attacking. Hunk realizes the creature only releases the precious mineral if it fires its laser. While Keith and the new Galra friend distract the internal defenses, Hunk forces the worm to fire. Keith grabs the crystals, but the Galra pilot points a gun at him. After a tense moment, the stranger just takes a bag and bails. In the end, Hunk, never one to miss a beat, cracks some light jokes about Keith's new Galra ancestry. Following the Blade of Marmora's intel, Shiro, Pidge, and Lance set off on a rescue mission to the Betatraz prison. The goal is to free a genius named Slav. Pidge plays the guy in the chair, hacking everything from the command room while Shiro and Lance infiltrate the cells. There's just one detail. The intel was wrong and there are 2 prisoners instead of 1. A classic comedy of errors ensues. Pidge loses her signal when the prison warden shows up. Lance rescues what he thinks is the prisoner, while Shiro finds the real Slav. The guy is unbearable, a paranoid lizard who calculates the probability of death every 2 seconds, like a C-3PO having a prophetic anxiety attack. During the escape, Pidge sees security footage and discovers that her brother Matt managed to escape from there some time ago. The team reunites in the hangar, and Lance realizes his blunder. The prisoner he saved is actually the warden's pet. The warden, furious over his little dog, corners them. But in a statistical twist, Slav opens the hangar doors and Lance lands a miracle shot, saving the annoying lizard and securing their escape.
That's why we bring our sharpshooter. Yup.
Princess Allura decides to pop over to the Balmera to grab a superpowered giant crystal. It was supposed to be a quick in and out trip, but the universe hates convenient plots. That roe beast we thought we defeated is back, now fused with the rock like a video game boss with a second health bar. With no other choice, Allura calls the Paladins, and Voltron takes the stage to test out some new toys. With their upgraded arsenal, they finally blow the monster to Kingdom Come. Back at the castle, the mood is heavier than the roe beast itself. Allura is giving Keith the cold shoulder, acting passive-aggressive just because she found out about his Galra DNA. Yeah, the princess is being pretty toxic, judging a book by its cover, or rather, its blood. Meanwhile, on the Alkari planet, the super teleporter is ready, and the team takes a moment to reminisce, like a recap episode before the season finale. On the villain side, things go south for Thace. The Blade of Marmora spy tries to retrieve a device and gets caught by the druids. It looks like the infiltration plan went up in smoke before it even began. With the giant teleporter ready, the team decides it's time for the final attack, Death Star style. The Blade of Marmora wants to abort because Face is missing, but Allura insists on moving forward. Before the fight, she finally puts her prejudice aside and apologizes to Keith, admitting the Paladins are her new family, regardless of race. Cute moment over. Time for war. Zarkon, who isn't stupid, was already expecting them. It's an obvious trap. His fleet surrounds everyone, but the Emperor is too obsessed with reclaiming the Black Lion. While chaos breaks out in space, Keith infiltrates the mothership and Shiro acts as bait. The druids had sabotaged the shield, so the plan changes. The goal now is to turn the core room into a bomb. Face takes advantage of the chaos to escape and, in a heroic action movie move, sacrifices his life to overload the core. Zarkon's ship goes dark. Taking advantage of the blackout, Allura teleports the villain ship to an isolated corner of the universe, far from his fleet. Now it's Voltron versus Zarkon, one-on-one. No interference. Zarkon dons experimental mechanical armor to take on Voltron in a straight-up brawl. Hagar tries to intervene using dark magic to drain the giant robot's energy, but she takes a purity shock that nearly fries her brain. While Voltron is paralyzed, Zarkon takes the opportunity to pummel the heroes. The fight splits into 2 fronts. In space, the Lions versus the Emperor. Inside the ship, Allura and the Marmora crew versus the Witch. Unfortunately, Antok's luck runs out and he's taken down by Hagar. F in the chat. In the midst of the desperation, Shiro's Black Lion unlocks a Transcendent Wings mode, piercing through Zarkon's armor and reclaiming the original Bayard. At that moment, Allura discovers that, like Hagar, she can also manipulate quintessence, and she defeats the Witch. With the whole team buffed, Shiro uses the giant sword to destroy Zarkon's armor. Total victory, or so it seems. When they return to the hangar, the Black Lion's cockpit is empty. Shiro has vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, the villains recover what's left of Zarkon, who is in a coma, and Hagar sends for Prince Lotor. Things are looking grim for the heroes. Keith is in total denial, scouring space for Shiro and ignoring the fact that the Black Lion's cockpit is emptier than a theater for a box office bomb. Even Korin tries to give him a reality check, but Keith is unyielding. Meanwhile, Princess Allura is a bundle of nerves because she has to face diplomats and has no clue where to even start. In the meantime, Lance and Hunk save the day on planet Puig with help from the rebels of the Blade of Marmora. There's just one problem. The locals want to see Voltron. Things get awkward when they have to explain the band is missing its lead singer. During the official dinner at the castle, the tension boils over. The aliens demand the giant robot's presence, and Keith, with the patience of a ticking time bomb, snaps at the table, screams that Voltron is over, and storms out. Great diplomacy. On the villain's side, Zarkon is on medical leave, read a coma, and Hagar is barring all visitors. Enter Prince Lotor, the prodigal son. Throck, a Galra general who thinks he owns the place, challenges Lotor to a 1v1 in the arena, thinking it'll be an easy win. Big mistake. Lotor fights with terrifying elegance, humiliates the guy, and tops it off with a motivational speech to the crowd. He spares Throck's life in front of everyone, but behind the scenes he sends him into frozen exile, proving he's phonier than a $3 bill.
Will be crushed.
In the end, the team finally faces reality. Shiro is gone, and they have to figure out how to rebuild Voltron on their own. Lotor immediately begins putting his plan into action on Puig. Instead of blowing everything up, he captures a local leader and delivers a masterful sales pitch. Voltron has abandoned you. Join my team and thrive. He offers protection in exchange for loyalty, essentially creating an intergalactic pyramid scheme. At the Castle of Lions, a true game of musical chairs is underway. Allura decides the Black Lion must choose a new pilot. Everyone tries their luck. Lance, with his trademark and clueless overconfidence, volunteers, but the lion doesn't even blink. Ultimately, it falls to Keith. Swallowing his grief and focusing on Shiro's wish for him to lead, the Black Lion finally roars for him. We have a new chief. However, this triggers a domino effect. The Red Lion is now vacant and rejects Allura. Worse yet, when a distress signal comes from Puig, Lance tries to deploy in the Blue Lion, but the ship shuts down in his face. He gets mechanically ghosted and is left grounded, while Keith, Pidge, and Hunk take a beating from Lotor's generals, who are far faster and more coordinated. Realizing his friends are being outclassed, Lance gets the message. The Blue Lion is no longer his. He tells Allura to take the helm, and the Blue Lion accepts her instantly. The princess flies into the fray, but even with 4 of them, they are outmatched. Lance joins the fight. The team is complete. Lotor, who is no fool, sees the giant robot and orders a strategic retreat. Back at base, the new lineup is official. Keith is leader, Allura in blue, and Lance in red. Keith immediately shows what he's made of, aggressive and blunt. He orders an immediate pursuit of Lotor's ship, proving that his leadership will be far less peaceful than Shiro's. The problem is that everyone looks like a bunch of noobs playing a new class in an RPG. Even with the team completely out of sync, Keith, acting as hot-headed as ever, decides to launch an immediate attack on Prince Lotor's cruiser. The lack of synergy is painful. Allura struggles with the controls, and Lance can't handle the lion's speed, looking like a student driver behind the wheel of a Ferrari. Lotor, sporting that Tony Stark level of confidence, decides to take on all 5 alone in his personal fighter. The villain absolutely schools them. He outmaneuvers everyone, making the paladins slam into each other like bumper cars. Keith tries to call for them to form Voltron, but the team's mental state is so shot that the transformation fails. Lotor lures the gang to a planet, a magnetic trap that blinds the lion's sensors. Keith, stubborn as a mule, ignores the danger warnings and leads the team straight into the storm, separating everyone in the process. Alone, Allura tries to make the lion work by using pickup lines, mimicking Lance's style, but just ends up embarrassing herself. It's only when she drops the act and admits she needs help, in a true Disney-style vulnerability moment, that she forms a real bond and the lion's radar kicks in. Allura rallies the team. Keith apologizes for his toxic leadership, and Lance provides that bro-tier emotional support. Now united, they form Voltron and wipe out the enemy fleet in the blink of an eye. Lotor retreats, and Keith makes the mature call not to pursue. But the prince leaves laughing. He realized this new paladin lineup is full of holes, like an NBA team in a rebuilding year, and he knows exactly where to strike next. The paladins pick up a distress signal, and with the curiosity of someone who's never seen a horror movie, decide to investigate. navigate. They stumble upon a space rift made of pure quintessence. Ignoring the obvious danger, Allura decides it's a great idea to shove Voltron inside. On the other side, they find what looks like a Black Mirror episode, an alternate reality where the Alteans won the war. In this bizarre universe, they find Slav and a guy named Sven, who is basically Shiro with a weird accent and a soap opera actor vibe. But the joy is short-lived. They discover that Altean peace is maintained through mass lobotomies, turning everyone into obedient Stepford Wives-style zombies. Meanwhile, Lotor is lurking, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Like an annoying camper in an FPS game, the mission becomes a chaotic scramble to recover a comet made of the same material as the Lions. A firefight breaks out. Sven takes a hit to save Lance, finally making himself useful, and the team manages to escape back to their reality. However, Lotor, clever as ever, takes advantage of Voltron being out of power and steals the comet right under their noses. The Paladins are left empty-handed while the villain escapes with the legendary loot to build superpowered ships. Shiro wakes up in a Galra facility, completely disoriented and in full castaway mode, sporting long hair and a heavy beard, suggesting he's been out for a long time. But he hasn't lost his edge. He breaks containment, beats down a squad of sentinels, and hijacks a ship. The escape is short-lived, and he crashes on a desolate ice planet very much like Star Wars Hoth. His situation is dire. Wounded and freezing, Shiro begins a brutal trek across the ice, fighting off exhaustion and hallucinations. To make matters worse, a giant ice worm shows up, the kind that would make the cast of Dune run for cover. Using his glowing prosthetic arm and quick reflexes, Shiro electrocutes the monster but collapses immediately after. He is found by two scavengers who drag him to a cave. When he wakes up, Shiro is tied up and being interrogated. The scavengers think he's a Galra spy. He tries to pull rank, claiming he's a paladin of Voltron, but they just laugh in his face, saying Voltron disappeared a long time ago and the Galra Empire has only grown. Meanwhile, we see Prince Lotor. He knows something is up but chooses to stay back and observe, proving he's far more calculating and patient than his hot-headed father. Shiro sees a chance to escape when a Galra cruiser passes nearby. He breaks free, takes down his captors without hurting them too much because he's a good guy, and steals their ship to intercept the cruiser. It's a suicide mission. Lotor orders his defenses to fire, treating Shiro's ship like space junk. In an insane maneuver, Shiro dodges the fire and slips into the cruiser's exhaust port just as the massive ship enters hyperspace. Once inside, he steals a Galra fighter and flees into open space. Nearly out of oxygen and drifting aimlessly, he is finally located by Keith in the Black Lion, securing the rescue and the reunion we've all been waiting for. The Voltron squad has finally stopped looking like a bunch of randoms in a ranked match. They raid a Galra base with a level of synchronicity that would make the Avengers jealous, with Lance providing sniper cover while the rest of the team clears the floor. Back at the castle, Shiro is recovering, but his memory is more fragmented than an old hard drive. He remembers nothing after the fight with Zarkon. The mood gets heavy when Lance hits an existential crisis, thinking that with 6 pilots and 5 lions, he's going to lose the game of musical chairs and end up getting benched. Pidge and Hunk, the team's IT department, track down a super dense ore comet that Lotor is utilizing. This leads the gang to the system, where they find a mysterious ship stealing the comet. When Shiro tries to take command of the Black Lion for the mission, the machine snubs him. The Lion has already chosen its new pilot, and Keith is officially player 1 now. On the surface, the Paladins infiltrate the enemy ship and fall into an ambush by Lotor's generals, resulting in a full-blown kung fu brawl. But the real danger is in space. Lotor has a new ship made from the Commodore, and the thing is way too fast, dodging shots like it's in the Matrix. Shiro, now acting as the coach on the sidelines, orders Keith to destroy the cargo Lotor is towing. In a high-risk, high-reward move, Keith drops Voltron shields to take a precision shot. They blow the cargo, but leave themselves completely exposed, taking a brutal counterattack that leaves the giant robot KO. Flashback time to explain the millennial-old feud. Hagar tries to wake Zarkon and ends up triggering a recap montage of memories. Karan takes over as narrator to tell the origin of the Lions. We discover that back in the day, Allura's father Zarkon and the rest of the crew were the original Avengers, best friends and defenders of peace. Everything changes when a magical comet lands in Zarkon's backyard. His wife, Onerva, spoiler, Hagar before the goth makeup, starts studying it and discovers quintessence. They create the Lions and Voltron to fight monsters from another dimension, but quintessence becomes a heavy addiction. Zarkon and Onerva get obsessed with exploring the dimensional rift, ignoring all of All Four's safety warnings. The tragedy is worthy of Darth Vader. Zarkon and Onerva enter the rift, die from energy overdose, and are resurrected completely corrupted and evil. Zarkon destroys Allura's home planet out of spite, and the rest is history. Back in the present, the team realizes Lotor wants to use the stolen comet to build ships that travel between realities. To top it off, Hagar's spell works, and the original Zarkon opens his eyes, ready to take back the throne from his son. It's going to be a family feud.
Come back for me.
Keith is in a lone wolf phase, ignoring the Voltron group chat to go on secret missions with the Blade of Marmora. He's focused on finding hidden quintessence supplies, but the mission turns into an ambush that costs an ally's life. Even with Allura begging him to come back and focus on the team, the kid is more stubborn than a rebellious teenager wanting to move out. Meanwhile, the Paladins receive a distress call and head into battle without their leader. You know when a team plays without its star player and the defense turns into a sieve? Yeah, they get wrecked by the Galra. That's when Shiro, tired of sitting on the sidelines, decides to try piloting the Black Lion again. The connection snaps back instantly and the man takes command like Michael Jordan coming out of retirement.
I take out one, but two won't replace it.
With the full team and the real captain in charge, Voltron sweeps the enemy fleet. In the end, they have the talk. Keith admits his place is now with the Marmora spies and officially hands the leadership back to Shiro. The group's emo kid has gone solo, leaving the command to someone who actually knows what they're doing. Pidge goes full private eye, embarking on a solo search for her brother, Matt, recalling how he comforted her as a child. She pressures an arms dealer who tries to scam her for a bounty, but the girl is more dangerous than she looks and rips the information out of him. Following the clues, she reaches a rebel base and watches an ally die, but not before he delivers a crucial code. The signal leads her to a space graveyard full of wreckage. Pidge finds a grave with Matt's name on it, and the mood gets heavy, Oscar bait style. But wait, she notices the birth date is wrong. It's not a typo, it's a mathematical riddle. Sherlock Holmes would be proud of that deduction. The hidden coordinates lead to an isolated asteroid where she's attacked by a masked ninja. The mask falls off, and it's Matt. The emotional reunion is interrupted by the arms dealer turned bounty hunter. The siblings join forces like a dynamic duo, beat the intruder to a pulp, and finally get to embrace their family. Emperor Zarkon is wide awake and not at all happy with his son's management. First order of business, firing Lotor. The prince is stripped of his rank and put under surveillance by Mommy Hagar, who discovers he's building ships with that stolen magical comet. It's basically Succession in space, complete with betrayal and power struggles. Meanwhile, Matt meets the whole gang at the castle and helps the nerd trio, himself, Pidge, and Hunk, hack the Galra communication system. They discover a massive attack at a random point in space, and Voltron goes there to play hero, using a new cloaking device that turns the robot invisible. But they're in for a surprise. The victim of the attack is Lotor, and the one doing the hitting is his own father. The cloaking fails at the worst possible moment, turning into a three-way free-for-all. Zarkon declares total war against his son, ordering Lotor to be killed on sight. The prince and the paladins narrowly escape, but the board has turned. The handsome villain is now a fugitive, and the royal family is officially in a civil war. Shiro decides Voltron needs a better PR agency, and puts Korin in charge as marketing manager. The problem is that Korin has the charisma of a burning door, and the first events are a total fiasco. Desperate, he buys a supposed mental tonic from a random patient, which turns out to be nothing more than an alien brainworm. With the parasite in control, Korin basically becomes Bradley Cooper in Limitless, but a crazy alien version. He books insane shows and packs the Paladin's schedule, turning the war into a rock tour. But the ambition goes to his head, literally, and he decides the grand finale needs a real monster to fight Voltron live. Obviously, this goes south, and the beast almost kills everyone. Bebo B manages to pull the worm out of Korin's head before it's too late, and the Paladins defeat the monster. The crowd, thinking it was all ILM level special effects, goes wild. Ultimately, the crazy strategy worked, and the team's popularity skyrocketed. The Rebel Coalition decides it's time to play Risk for real, and plans an attack on planet Naxella to seize a third of Galra territory. While the heroes set the strategy, Lotor is on a side mission on the old Galra home planet, trying to use what's left of that magical comet to rip a hole in reality and grab infinite energy. His plan fails miserably. His generals, Aksha, Azor, and Zethrid, finally grow tired of following a leader who promises the world but doesn't deliver. They try to betray Lotor and hand him over to Zarkon in exchange for a pardon, but the prince is slippery. He slips out of his cuffs and flees in a ship like Jack Sparrow. On the other side, the coalition attack begins. Team Pidge, her and Matt, along with Hunk, hack the enemy cannons and let the space artillery fly. Hagar learns the attack has started, but strangely, she doesn't look a bit worried, which is never a good sign. As Admiral Akbar would say, it's a trap. As soon as Voltron arrives at Naxxela, Hagar triggers a technological voodoo that cranks the planet's gravity to absurd levels. The giant robot is pinned to the ground, unable to move. To make matters worse, the team discovers the entire planet is basically a giant hexamite bomb about to detonate. While Voltron tries not to get pancaked, Keith sees that the rebel fleet is about to be decimated by the barrier of Hagar's ship. Being typical Keith, he decides to pull the most dramatic move possible, a kamikaze attack straight into the enemy shield, Independence Day style, ignoring Matt's screams for him to stop. But in the final seconds, a laser blast comes out of nowhere and shatters the shield before Keith can kill himself. Who fired? None other than Lotor. He pulls a Han Solo saving Luke, destroys Hagar's plan, and forces the witch to flee. As the dust settles, the ex-villain opens a comm channel and says he wants to have a little chat with the Paladins. Is the enemy of my enemy now my best friend? Lotor keeps trying to prove he's switched teams, like a player who moves to a rival club and needs to win over the fans. He provides a hot lead, a Sentinel factory, but the team is still suspicious, thinking it's all an elaborate trap. To shut the skeptics up, the prince offers an emotional checkmate, the exact location of Pidge's father, Commander Holt. The mission turns into an Ocean's 11-style heist movie. Nat and Pidge take point and call in reinforcements from the underworld, Rolo, Naima, and the robot Beezer. It's a classic plan. Pidge causes a massive ruckus in space to distract the Galra fleet, while the rest of the team infiltrates the prison stealthily. They free several prisoners. But when Matt reaches the cell where his father should be, he gets that classic video game moment. Your princess is in another castle. The commander had already been transferred. Back at the Castle of Lions, the mood gets heavy when a call comes in from the big boss himself. Zarkon appears on the screen with a direct proposal, action movie kidnapper style. He'll trade Commander Holt for his traitorous son, Lotor. The group's tension goes from 0 to 100 real fast. The trade proposal leaves the team divided, Captain America Civil War style. Pidge, desperate to see her father, agrees instantly to hand over their ally. The rest of the group thinks it's stupid to trust the word of a space tyrant, but Lotor, surprisingly, warns them that his father will double-cross them anyway. In the end, emotion wins, and they set up the meeting. Meanwhile, on the villain's side, the witch Hagar finally recovers her lost memories and has her soap opera moment. She realizes Lotor is actually her son, but that doesn't stop the feud. During the trade, Pidge discovers it was all a low blow. Her father there was just a hologram, like Tupac at Coachella. Zarkon demands Voltron, and chaos ensues. Lotor lunges at his own father in a massive duel. While the family fight burns, Pidge, Matt, and Shiro chase the generals who have the real Commander Holt. With the team's backup, they finally rescue Pidge's dad. At the climax of the brawl, Lotor shows what he's made of, and after taking a bit of a beating, turns the tables and kills Zarkon. The Emperor has fallen, and the cosmic game board has been flipped upside down. With Zarkon dead, the Galra Empire becomes a total mess, looking like Game of Thrones after the king dies. Everyone wants the throne. Hagar, unwilling to give up her hold on power, recruits Lotor's ex-generals to stop her son from taking over. Lotor warns the Paladins about the Kral Zera, a gladiator-style ceremony to crown the new leader, and says he needs to be there. The teen thinks it's risky, but Shiro, who's been grumpier than usual, throws a fit and demands everyone obey. Lance, trying to lighten the mood, unlocks a new form for his weapon, a two-handed broadsword, identical to the one Allura's father used. It's a beautiful moment, but reality soon knocks on the door. A Galra commander attacks Okarion with a virus that turns the forest into something out of a zombie movie. In battle, by using their Bayards together, the Paladins access the astral plane. That's when things get weird. Shiro appears glitching out, like a ghost or a glitch in the Matrix, trying to speak to Lance.
Lance, listen to me. What?
Back in the real world, Shiro claims not to remember anything, leaving Lance suspicious. Something is very wrong with the leader. Meanwhile, Pidge's father decides to return to Earth to prep defenses, Independence Day style, and Hagar prepares her new puppet for the throne, the cyborg Sendak. Keith infiltrates planet Faive with the Blade of Marmora, prepping for the Kral Zera, basically the most violent inauguration ceremony in the galaxy. Lotor explains the plan, but most of the Paladins think taking Voltron there is a disaster waiting to happen. Only Shiro, still giving off that strange and aggressive vibe, supports the prince and storms off when they disagree with him. While Keith plants bombs to sabotage the event, Mission Impossible style, the fight breaks out above, general against general in a total free-for-all. Hagar arrives with her champion, the cyborg Sendak, ready to steal the show and the throne. But then Shiro shows up with the Black Lion and Lotor, ruining Keith's demolition plan. Keith has to scramble to disarm the explosives so he doesn't blow up his own leader. Amidst the chaos, explosions, and duels, Keith is saved by Aksha in a confusing enemies or maybe not moment. Lotor faces Sendak and despite the explosive interruption, manages to light the ceremonial flame. Against all odds, the exiled prince is crowned the new emperor. It seems the crazy plan worked. But Shiro's behavior remains the team's biggest red flag. With Lotor in command, the Paladins get VIP access to Galra HQ. Lance, Pidge, and Hunk take advantage of the downtime to reprogram a Sentinel robot and goof off, acting like kids in a toy store. Meanwhile, Pidge's father leaves for Earth, and Keith receives a much more serious solo mission: destroy a superweapon before rival factions seize it. He meets up with a tough operative named Krolia. The mission goes south fast when a rival commander, Trug, appears and captures Keith. Krolia, surprisingly, hands over the weapon codes to save the boy. The problem is that the weapon is an alien-style biological monster that turns on everyone, forcing a desperate escape. After escaping, Keith confronts Krolia about how she knew how to use his Blade of Marmora sword, and then comes the biggest Star Wars moment of the series so far. Krolia reveals that the sword was hers, and that she left it with his father. Yes, she is Keith's mother, which explains a lot about the kid's lone wolf temperament. Following an ancient map, the team heads to a dangerous zone called the Patrulian System in search of Orion, a mythical land of Altean science. They find a white hole guarded by a giant white lion. The beast drains the castle's energy, leaving everyone in a tense Apollo 13-like situation, racing against time before the oxygen runs out. Allura and Lotor's marks begin to glow, granting them exclusive access to the magic dimension. Inside the two face trials, Lotor tries to force his way through and is rejected by the Guardian, being kicked out of the temple. Allura, however, passes the character test and unlocks the secrets of ancient alchemy, saving the day at the last second. Meanwhile, in the powerless castle, a moment of tension unfolds. Shiro confesses to Lance that he doesn't remember anything from the astral plane and that he doesn't feel like himself, and the reason is worse than any horror movie. We discover that Hagar is using Shiro's eyes as surveillance cameras, spying on everything Black Mirror style. The witch knows exactly where they are going. Lotor and Allura return triumphant from Orient, ready to rule the galaxy as the dynamic duo of peace. However, the celebration is cut short by the arrival of Dyack, Lotor's former governess. Think of her as a mix between Mary Poppins and a drill sergeant. Extremely polite, but lethal. Lance tries to crack a joke and immediately gets tased by her staff, learning the hard way that you don't mess with the Galra super nanny. Hunk, in a moment of anthropological curiosity, asks to be trained by Dyack. What was supposed to be a cultural exchange turns into a CrossFit workout from hell, where quitting means fighting to the death. At least he learns that Repet Sa means the killing stroke, which explains a lot. Meanwhile, Lotor goes live to the entire empire, declaring himself the new emperor, but Commander Sendak, leader of a rebel faction, isn't buying it and attacks a planet protected by solar shields. Team Voltron arrives and realizes Sendak doesn't want to fight. He wants to destroy the shield generator and let the solar radiation fry everyone. Hunk uses Dyack's aggressive training to scream victory or death, motivating the Galra generals to help with the repairs. In a clutch play, Allura uses ice and Lance uses heat to weld the shield plates back together. In the final explosion, the Red Lion is hit, leaving Lance Lance unconscious. Allura rushes to the cockpit and uses her magic to heal him, a moment that sent the shippers into a total frenzy. But the episode ends on a horror movie vibe. Shiro is still having brutal migraines and has a vision of the witch Hagar. Worse, he sees a man with white hair and scars who is identical to him. The conspiracy theories just got real. The family drama continues to weigh heavy in space. Keith still hasn't processed the bombshell that his mission partner is actually his long-lost mother, and he demands answers. But Krolia, cold and calculating like a secret agent, says the mission comes first. However, the universe gives them no break. Bizarre creatures attack their ship, forcing the duo to make a drastic alien-style decision. They abandon the ship and proceed on foot, but end up falling into a time distortion that would make Christopher Nolan's Interstellar look simple. Keith begins to have visions of the past and future, like a turbocharged ghost of Christmas past. We see how his parents met, the discovery of the blue lion on Earth, and the sad reason his mother had to leave. Krolia also discovers the fate of Keith's father, and the moment is heavy. To survive this quantum abyss, they hitch a ride on the back of a space whale and adopt a teleporting cosmic wolf, basically the best pet in the galaxy. Because of time dilation, what seems like minutes to the outside world is 2 years for them. When they finally emerge, they find a secret facility with a living Altean inside. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Lance is suffering in the friend zone, dying of jealousy because Allura won't leave Latour's side. To relieve the war tension, the gang decides to take a nerd day off. They start playing Monsters and Mana, which is literally the space version of Dungeons and Dragons. Corin takes on the role of Game Master and takes the roleplay way too seriously, putting the team inside an immersive simulation. It's a classic bottle episode, full of RPG references. Shiro tries to relax. Hunk and Pidge join the fun, and even a reluctant Lance eventually joins when Allura starts playing. They enter the Tomb of Horrors, and have to use mage and warrior skills to overcome the challenges. It's all fun and games until they win, but reality knocks fast. The group splits up to get back to work, and Allura rushes off to meet Lotor, leaving Lance the odd man out once again. To keep from moping, the Blue Paladin goes back to the game table with Shiro and Corin, trying to forget real-life problems by rolling virtual dice. The piece is over, and the script has turned into a thriller. Lotor's Simcline ships are ready, and he takes Allura for a romantic ride inside the Quintessence field. There, they find an ancient ship, and upon their return, a kiss seals the deal, to Lance's despair. But the joy is short-lived because Keith and Krolia arrive skidding with Rommel, the Altean they rescued. And here comes the Matrix-level plot twist. Rommel reveals that Lotor isn't the savior he pretends to be. He created a colony to hide the survivors of Altea, but there is a second secret colony where he uses the people as batteries to extract Quintessence. Lotor is basically an energy vampire. Allura is furious, and even with the prince begging, she knocks the guy out. But just when it seems the problem is solved, the witch Onerva flips the Winter Soldier switch in Shiro's head. The Paladin's leader becomes an evil puppet, kidnaps the unconscious Lotor, and flees. Pidge tries to stop them but fails. Chaos is unleashed, and Keith wastes no time. He retakes command of the Black Lion and leads the team in a frantic pursuit. The space chase continues at a breakneck pace, and Keith crosses the wormhole at the last second, determined to get his leader back. On the other side, the family drama takes over. Onerva reveals she is Lotor's mother, expecting an emotional hug, but receives only contempt. The prince rejects the connection, and just when it seems Aksha is going to help the witch, there's a double plot twist. Aksha was always loyal to Lotor, and it was all a plan to gain the Paladin's trust. The generals take the ships and head for the castle, leaving Onerva talking to herself. Meanwhile, at the castle, a virus planted by evil Shiro shuts everything down. Pidge, proving she's the Batman of the team, reveals she partially expected such a betrayal and had a contingency plan, but the real drama happens in a secret facility where Keith finds Shiro, or rather his clone. The Shiro clone attacks to kill, screaming that Keith was a mistake. It's a visceral, painful brawl, featuring facial scars for Keith, and the shocking moment where he has to cut off his friend's prosthetic arm to survive. The base begins to explode, and even wounded and betrayed, Keith refuses to abandon his comrade, recalling the classic promise to never give up on you. Keith awakens in the astral plane and finally discovers the truth that will blow any fan's mind. The real Shiro died back then, in the fight against Zarkon. The body that had been with them all this time was just an empty clone, while the original soul was hosted inside the Black Lion. In the physical world, Lotor arrives at the castle and tries to pull that toxic ex-boyfriend routine on Allura, swearing swearing his horrific crimes were for a greater good. The princess isn't buying it, and Lotor finally snaps. He reveals his god complex, promising to erase all of Altean history and create a new reality where he is the supreme deity. The speech is so insane that even his loyal generals, Aksha, Azor, and Zethrid, realize their boss is nuts and jump ship. Alone but not at all worried, Lotor merges the syncline ships into a giant Megazord-style robot and begins to pummel the deactivated lions. The situation seems impossible until Keith, connected with Shiro's spirit, awakens the Black Lion's wings. He flies in low, and finally, the team manages to form Voltron for the final battle against the ex-ally turned nightmare. The final battle begins, and Lotor's mecha is absurdly fast, dodging Voltron's shots as if he were in the Matrix. The fight moves to the quintessence field, where power levels rise but sanity drops. Lotor can jump between realities, and Allura realizes their only chance is to fight on the same turf. They open a rift and enter the dimension of pure energy. Inside, Voltron becomes supercharged and the brawl levels out. But just as happened with Zarkon, the energy begins to corrupt everyone. Lotor is already completely lost in madness, calling Allura weak. Realizing they can't win by brute force without losing their own souls, Allura decides to use the villain's greed against him. Instead of attacking, Voltron transfers all the excess energy directly into Lotor's robot. The villain tries to absorb it all but ends up overloaded and paralyzed, left behind in the collapsing dimension. The problem now is that the universe is tearing apart from the open rifts. The only solution is to sacrifice the Castle of Lions to detonate the core and seal reality. The plan works, and everyone escapes unharmed. On a nearby planet, Allura performs one last miracle. She transfers Shiro's soul from the Black Lion into the clone's body. Shiro wakes up, now with white hair like Gandalf the White, ready for a new beginning. And with the castle destroyed, Pidge reveals they have a new destination, Earth. With the Castle of Lions turned to cosmic dust, the team is in a worse spot than a phone at 1% battery. They need to recharge the Lions urgently, so Koran puts together a B team with Hunk, Pidge, Lance, and Ramel to hunt some creatures called Yalmors, which are supposedly energy sources. Meanwhile, Shiro remains in a coma, taking a forced nap, while his mind replays the best and worst moments of his life. We see flashbacks of him meeting Keith, his relationship with Adam, and that stubborn decision to go on the Kerberos mission despite being ill. It's basically a biopic playing inside his head. On the other hand, Koran's mission turns into a space version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The group finds the Yalmor but ends up shrinking in size. Now they have to manage in miniature mode, facing dangers that were previously harmless and finding a way to return to normal to get the energy. On the emotional front, Allura is worried that Shiro's soul isn't sticking to the clone, but Keith, in full Rocky-style coach mode, begs his friend not to give up. Koran's crazy plan works. The gang returns to original size and brings the energy. Keith's persistence acts as a spiritual defibrillator, and Shiro finally wakes up ready to say that cliché hero line,
Good to be back.
Even with the Lions half-baked, recharged, the decision is made. The destination is Earth. The problem is that the trip will take a year and a half, basically an eternity on a road trip with no bathroom breaks. Pidge tries to call the Voltron Coalition, but the universe's Wi-Fi seems to be down. They decide to stop at a Blade of Marmora outpost, but find the place more abandoned than a mall on a holiday. And of course, it's a trap. A Galra fleet appears out of nowhere, with the Lions running in power save mode. The Paladins stand no chance in direct combat. They try to use the environment to their advantage, flying into a cyclone and using an ice planet, giving off major Hoth vibes from The Empire Strikes Back. But the strategy doesn't last long. Azor and Zethrid, Lotor's ex-generals, show up to settle the score. They overcome the team, who were already on their last legs, and capture everyone. It looks like the homecoming has just been cancelled. Everyone is locked up in the general's ship. Lance, having watched too many movies, starts kicking the walls looking for secret passages, Scooby-Doo style, but only manages to hurt his foot and get a lecture from Keith. The only one who escaped the cell was Koren, who is now crawling through the ventilation ducts armed with a flashlight and space mice on a solo Mission Impossible run. Zethrid and Azor are on edge, wanting to know where Lotor went. They interrogate the gang, and Hunk tries the power of friendship talk, but the villains aren't buying it. Things get ugly when Zethrid decides to torture Pidge to make the others talk. At that moment, Aksha appears out of nowhere. But wait, she's not there to help the villains. In a plot twist, she allies with Koren to save the Paladins. Koren causes chaos disguised as a guard but ends up in a bar fight against a giant alien. Meanwhile, in the cell, the general confusion allows them to break free. Keep has his Jedi moment. He uses telepathy to summon his weapon, Bayard, from a distance, taking down the guards without even using his hands. The escape is frantic. Keith and Aksha hold the line fighting Azor and Zethrid while the rest run for the Lions. They blow up part of the enemy ship, apparently taking out the ex-generals. Safely away, Aksha drops a bombshell. They've been missing for a long time, and the whole universe thought Voltron was dead. Now, they've gained a new ally, but the political landscape has completely changed. Suddenly, the Paladins are thrown into a setting that looks like a bizarre cross between Jeopardy and a fever dream. They are on a game show called Garful Warful Snick, hosted by an alien named Bob. The goal? Earn points so they don't stay trapped there forever. Simple. The first round is a humiliating game of Pictionary where Keith, wearing a ridiculous samurai bun and a pacifier, has to draw past adventures. The opposing team? None other than the full Galra dysfunctional family. Zarkon, Hagar, Lotor, and Morvok. It's that awkward family reunion vibe where everyone hates each other, except freedom is on the line. Things get tense for Lance. He has to play a memory game about people they've met. The guy has the memory of a goldfish and calls the massive Antok that sword guy, but perfectly remembers Bebo B, that cute and useless alien. The result? Lance loses and gets sucked through a tube. Pidge, with her usual short fuse, tries to solve it with violence, but it doesn't work. The final round is pure psychological torture. They have to vote on who should be freed. In a moment of altruism worthy of an anime season finale, nobody votes for themselves. Bob, satisfied with the moral of the story, releases them. They wake up on the ship and realize it was all a collective dream. Like Inception, Koren explains that Bob is an ultra-powerful cosmic entity that tests heroes. The team's verdict? The guy is a jerk. The monotony of the journey was making the crew complacent, so Keith and Krolia decide to run an impossible battle simulation just to remind everyone that the war isn't over. As if the universe were listening, Pidge picks up a distress signal from a member of the Blade of Marmora. They land among some wreckage and find Macedus, a survivor who tells a grim tale. Hagar's druids wiped out the entire organization. However, the team's lie detector goes off. Macedus is an imposter. He's a druid in disguise playing a real-life game of Among Us, trying to lure the remaining rebels into a trap. The villain uses a device to freeze everyone except Keith, who is saved by the season's MVP, the Cosmic Wolf. The space doggo teleports Keith to safety, sparking a chase through the caves. While Keith battles the druid, they find Colivan, who is alive but imprisoned. After an intense fight, Keith defeats the imposter. With Colivan free, it's time for that bittersweet moment we all hate. Krolia decides her place is helping to rebuild the Blade of Marmora, rather than going to Earth. Following a tear-jerking goodbye, Keith has to let his mother go once again. Focus on the mission, but with a heavy heart. The mood on the ship is heavier than the ending of Avengers Infinity War. Shiro tries to rally the crew with talk of a spiritual connection to form Voltron without the Lions. But before they can focus, an energy pulse shuts everything down. The robots are dead in space and the crew is frozen. Only the Paladins remain conscious. The situation quickly escalates into a space horror movie akin to Gravity. They are thrown out of the Lions, floating in the void. Oxygen is running low. Morale is at rock bottom, and they begin to hallucinate. They see Earth and rejoice, thinking they've made it home, but Hunk, always the voice of reason, notices there's no sun or moon. He shoots at the planet and discovers Earth was actually the giant eye of a cosmic monster looking to devour them. A macabre plot twist. They try to fight the monster hand to hand, but they're like bugs hitting a windshield. In a final moment of despair, the spiritual connection works. The lions spring to life, fly to them, and Voltron is formed. Using massive new thrusters, they blast through the danger zone. When the dust settles, Pidge checks the star maps and confirms, no monster, no unknown space. They finally reach the Milky Way. Earth is right there. Approaching Earth, the team is filled with finally home expectations, but reality hits them like a freight train. Pidge tries to call her father, Samuel Holt, and receives a recorded message that is pure nightmare fuel. The Galra Empire has already invaded Earth, and everyone is bracing for the end. The script flashes back 4 years to explain the chaos. We see Sam Holt's return, very much in the style of the Martian reuniting with family. He tries to warn Galaxy Garrison Command that an alien invasion is imminent, but he hits a wall of bureaucracy. Admiral Sanda acts exactly like the mayor from Jaws, or the politicians in Don't Look Up. She ignores the warnings to avoid panic, choosing to bury her head in the sand. While leadership denies reality, Sam works with elite cadets, including James Griffin and his squad, to reverse engineer alien tech and upgrade Earth's defenses. Time passes, and Matt warns that Voltron has vanished. During the fight against Lotor, Sam wants to go public, but Sanda cuts communications and hides Earth's location. Fed up with the stalling, Sam and his wife Colleen pull an Edward Snowden and leak the truth globally. Surprisingly, instead of mass hysteria, the world unites. Unfortunately, shortly after, the Galra arrive to crash the party with a full-scale invasion. The invasion is in full swing, and Sendak, the villain we thought was long gone, is leading the charge. Admiral Sanda continues to make the worst possible decisions, refusing to use the new fighters and sending a standard fleet to the slaughter. Adam, Shiro's ex-partner, leads this suicide mission. The result is tragic. The human fleet is wiped from the sky in the blink of an eye. With Earth nearly conquered, the garrison is the final bastion, protected by particle shields. Left with no choice, Sanda finally releases the MFE Aces, ships tuned with alien tech. Griffin and his squad fly Top Gun style and manage to push the Galra back momentarily. Meanwhile, Veronica, Lance's sister, shines during a supply run. She seemingly sacrifices herself to save the team, but returns triumphant after contacting the resistance. The situation is critical. The population is enslaved, building weapons for the Galra, and morale is low. Sam Holt has to deliver an Independence Day-worthy motivational speech to keep hope alive while they race to finish a colossal new ship, the IGF Atlas. The Paladins finally enter the solar system, but they're immediately hit with a reality check. Sam warns them, don't bring the lions. If Sendak knows Voltron is in the area, he'll start executing hostages. The strategy shifts to Mission Impossible mode. They park the lions near Saturn, hijack a Galra patrol ship, and try to sneak onto Earth. The disguise doesn't last long, and they are attacked, only to be saved at the last second by Griffin's squad, who escorts everyone to the garrison. A bittersweet reunion follows. Lance and Pidge reunite with their families in a flurry of tears and hugs. But Hunk is left out since his family has been captured. Admiral Sanda, in her infinite wisdom, suggests handing over Voltron in exchange for Earth, but the Paladins give her a resounding no. Instead, they use the castle's tech to create an AI based on Sendak's memories, an interrogation simulator to predict his moves. Keith and Hunk go on a stealth mission to locate the prisoners. They find the labor camp, but it's too heavily guarded for an immediate rescue. Hunk sees his family from afar and promises to return, while Shiro gets a well-deserved upgrade, a new mechanical arm made with Garrison tech, officially turning him into the team's Winter Soldier. Shiro's new arm malfunctions, nearly short-circuiting the leader. Luckily, Allura acts fast, swapping the standard battery for an Altean crystal, making the arm 100% functional and overpowered. With Shiro back online, the team discovers Sendak's master plan. He's using slave labor to build Zyforge cannons at strategic points across Earth. Basically, he's turning the planet into a Death Star. To stop this, they launch a Metal Gear Solid-style recon mission. Pidge hacks the systems and confirms the weapons can detonate the planet at any moment. The plan is risky. Attack all 6 bases simultaneously. 5 lions take 5 targets, and the MFE squad takes the 6th. Lance hitches a ride with his sister Veronica, but is ambushed before reaching the Red Lion. When all seems lost, the lion shows up on its own to save the day, proving their connection is Bluetooth 5.0. The attack begins, but the defenses are too heavy. Then comes the knife in the back. Admiral Sanda, in a genius move, betrays the Paladins and gives their location to Sendak in exchange for Earth's safety. The result is disastrous. Voltron tries to form, but the new cannons are too powerful, splitting the giant robot with a single shot. Sanda learns the hard way that you don't make deals with cartoon villains. The Paladins end up imprisoned on Sendak's ship, without their lions, and without hope. And guess who's in the neighboring cell? Admiral Sanda. Sendak obviously didn't keep his word and continues to destroy Earth, leaving the Admiral looking foolish. Meanwhile, back at the garrison, Shiro decides to go all in. The plan is to transform the entire base into a ship, Macross or Power Rangers style. They try to launch the colossal ship, called the Atlas, but they lack the power. Korin saves the day by plugging the old Castle of Lions crystal into the console, and the ship awakens. The Atlas rises and enters the fray like a Pacific Rim Jaeger.
Size. It will take a feat of engineering to... I can't believe it. It's amazing.
Back in prison, the Paladins use the Force to mentally connect with the lions parked in the hangar. Sendak catches on and orders their execution. In a moment of late redemption, Sanda breaks free and attacks the guards to buy the hero's time. She pays the ultimate price, but ensures the Paladins reach their lions. With the team free and the Atlas in the sky, the tide of battle turns. The heat is on. Sendak realizes he's losing and hits the panic button. He aims all Zyforge cannons for a combined blast to vaporize Earth. Sam Holt spots the move and Pidge brainstorms an advanced physics plan. The idea is to use reflector satellites to divert the giant laser, like a light puzzle from The Legend of Zelda. While the NFE fighters destroy the ground bases, the Paladins hold back the laser in space, but the energy is too much, and the reflectors start to fail. The Atlas moves in front of the beam like Captain America with his shield, tanking the damage while Shiro infiltrates Sendak's ship alone to shut down the power source. The enemy ship begins to fall, and the Lions guide its crash away from cities. Inside the wreckage, the final 1v1 happens. Shiro versus Sendak. The Galra gets the upper hand and is ready to finish Shiro, but Keith arrives at the last second and sends the villain to hell. Victory seems certain, hugs and celebrations all around, until a mysterious meteor crashes onto Earth because peace lasts exactly 3 seconds in this show. That mysterious meteor wasn't a rock, it was a surprise final boss. Out comes a giant robot that tanks hits from Voltron and the Atlas as if they were mosquito bites. The situation turns critical. The team's energy is in the red, but Shiro has a classic anime protagonist epiphany. He realizes the Atlas, powered by the Altean crystal, isn't just a transport, it's a transformer waiting to be unleashed. Shiro triggers the transformation and the base turns into a colossal mecha, making Voltron look like a toy beside it. An insane kaiju battle ensues, but the enemy robot is still a tough nut to crack. That's when Keith uses his keen eye to find a weak point in the enemy's chest, allowing Voltron to receive a sudden upgrade and end the fight. However, the enemy triggers a Predator-style self-destruct, threatening to take half the planet with it. The Lions grab the robot and drag it into space, where it explodes safely away. Earth is saved, but the Paladins collapse in exhaustion. After a moving funeral for the war victims and some recovery time in the hospital, a grim plot twist arrives. Sam Holt calls Allura to see what's left of the enemy robot, and the revelation is heavy. The battery powering that machine was actually a living Altean. Pidge is in her room literally watching an episode of the original 80s Voltron series, critiquing the voice acting of her past self. Meanwhile, Hook notices Keith is a bit too happy, which sparks jealousy in Lance, who thinks he's missed his chance with Allura. Hunk, being the ultimate wingman, pushes Lance to finally ask the princess out before they leave Earth. Miraculously, she says yes. Operation Perfect Date begins. Pidge, Allura, and Rommel head to a mall that looks like a set from The Last of Us to buy a dress. Pidge has to sacrifice her favorite video game in a trade with a mercenary vendor to get the outfit. Total respect for that gamer sacrifice. On the other side, Korin tries to dress Lance in kitchen scraps, but Keith saves the day with some genuine bro advice. The date involves Lance's chaotic family and ends with a romantic walk, where the kiss the fandom has been waiting for finally happens. But the joy is short-lived. Rommel reveals the pilot of the previous robot was from Lotor's colony and was acting under the orders of a vengeful Onerva. The episode ends with the team saying goodbye to Earth, ready to hunt the witch down. Grab your popcorn because it's time for a Godfather-style flashback. We see Onerva fully embracing her Hagar persona and going Joker. She uses her old cat, Kova, almost like a mystical flash drive to access old memories. We see the happy past where she and Zarkon planned their baby's name, oscillating between Lotor, the explorer, and Koltor, the conqueror, unaware of the tragedy to come. In the present, she discovers Lotor was defeated and trapped in the quintessence field. Her reaction is a massacre. She invades the Kralzera, the sacred Galra gathering, and eliminates all rival commanders in a move worthy of Game of Thrones, taking total control of what remains of the Empire. The most bizarre part is discovering that in the past, Onerva lost her memory right after childbirth and rejected her own son. Now, driven by madness, she decides to avenge Lotor at any cost. She manipulates the remaining Alteans with lies, claiming Voltron killed their messiah, and begins building an army of mechas piloted by Alteans, turning her maternal grief into a problem for the entire universe. Onerva is scouring the cosmos for Emperor Lotor, but her subordinates can't find a trace of him. The Voltron coalition launches a full-scale assault on Warlord Lon's base. Victory is swift, but when they attempt to recruit him, Lon is bitter, claiming Voltron vanished when they were needed most. The heated exchange is cut short by a distress signal from a supply ship. A temporary truce is called as they move to investigate. Upon arrival, the atmosphere shifts into a space horror scenario reminiscent of Alien. The ship is adrift in a graveyard of wreckage. Keith, Lon, and the Paladins board the vessel, finding only empty corridors. Pidge accesses the logs and sees a creature moving at impossible speeds, slaughtering the crew. It doesn't take long for the monster to appear in the flesh, a beast supercharged with quintessence. Amidst the panic, Keith drops a bombshell. He knows this creature. He and Krolia accidentally unleashed this biological weapon while escaping another Galra prison. The massacre is technically, on him, a major oversight. With their weapons failing to even scratch the monster, Pidge triggers the ship's self-destruct. It's a race to escape. The creature blocks the exit, and Lon, disillusioned by the collapse of the Galra Empire, nearly gives up. However, Keith proves his mettle as a protagonist, risking his own life to save his enemy. They blast the monster out through the airlock seconds before the ship turns into cosmic dust. Back in safety, Lon stands down. He realizes that while the Galra tear each other apart, Voltron fights for life, and he finally swears loyalty to the Coalition. But peace is fleeting. Elsewhere in the universe, Onerva stands before an ominous pyramid, summoning a massive mecha through a portal. The Paladins are on a space marathon that would make a long-haul trucker call it quits. They've jumped through 11 systems in 3 days, hunting robeasts, and found nothing. The team is at such a level of exhaustion that Hunk doesn't even know what day of the week it is. Allura, stressed over the disappearance of her people, wants to dive into a suicide mission in the quantum abyss. But Lance, stepping up with some This Is Us level emotional support, manages to calm her down and strengthen their bond. Shiro intervenes and suggests a strategic pit stop at Olkarian. On the way, they get a massive jump scare. They run into a Weblum. Remember that giant worm from Dune or the whale from Pinocchio? It's like that, a colossal space beast that eats planets. The team swerves and makes it to Olkarion, but the scene is straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie. The technologically advanced planet has been turned into scrap and dust. Pidge, devastated to see her mentor's home destroyed, uses her Avatar-style connection with the local nature and has a vision of what happened. A robeast with a white, angelic look destroyed everything, sucked the planet's life force, and stole specific data cores. The problem is, the Weblum is arriving to finish the cleanup and devour the dead planet. It's a race against the clock. While Hunk, Lance, and Keith try to distract the cosmic beast in a risky maneuver, Pidge focuses on the vision to uncover the Okari's final gift. Before being annihilated, they left behind the secret to tracking these monsters that travel through wormholes. The planet is swallowed by the Weblum, recycling its matter back into the universe, but the Allies' sacrifice has finally given Voltron the chance to hunt down their enemies. Aksha is in her new girl at school phase, trying to fit in with the Atlas crew. The vibe is awkward until Veronica adopts the former Galra general and makes her feel like part of the team. Meanwhile, the Paladins fall for a massive trap. They go to a meeting point and are ambushed by the Galra, forcing them to abandon their lions and suits. Now they're stuck in a toxic environment without armor, basically playing a hardcore version of Survivor or Naked and Afraid, but with the imminent risk of death by poisoning. The Atlas realizes something is wrong and arrives at the last second to rescue Lance, Allura, Pidge, and Hunk. But Keith, as always, has his solo drama moment. He is intercepted by Zethrid, who is beyond furious and out for blood. She blames Keith for Azor's disappearance and is in full Kill Bill mode, ready to annihilate him. She dominates the fight, and just when it looks like Keith is a goner, the cavalry arrives. Aksha tries a talk no jutsu on her old friend. She hits Zethrid with the hard truth. Azor wasn't captured. She just left because she couldn't take the toxic, hate-filled vibe anymore. The truth hurts. Zethrid is arrested, and in her cell, Azor appears to offer moral support, showing that their friendship is complicated but still exists. The situation goes from 0 to 100 very fast. Allura discovers Onerva is building a magical version of the Death Star, intending to drain an entire galaxy's energy. The target is Orion, and the Atlas charges in while the Lions try to hold the line. The battle is insane, with the Atlas finally destroying a robeast on its own, proving it's more than just a flying hotel. Then, Onerva decides to go all out and tears reality open. From the rift, she pulls Lotor's Syncline ship, which was lost in the Quintessence field. Allura nearly has a breakdown seeing it. The ship fights as if it were Lotor himself, spreading terror and tearing Voltron apart. The brutality is so intense that even Onerva's acolytes are shocked. Desperate, Allura leaves the Blue Lion to face the witch one-on-one. Meanwhile, Lotor's ship nearly crushes Lance. Onerva freezes everything and begins psychological warfare on Allura, promising to bring Altea back if she surrenders. Allura realizes that if she kills the witch now, zombie Lotor kills Lance. She misses her strike on purpose and breaks down in tears. The villain wins this round, makes her son's ship kneel before her, and escapes while Orion explodes behind our heroes. Total defeat. After the depression of the last episode, we shift to The Office in Space vibe. Kincaid, one of the pilots, decides to document life aboard the Atlas, filming a day-in-the-life vlog. Rizavi jumps in, and they start interviewing everyone, showing the behind-the-scenes of the war. It's got everything. Colleen Holt, Koran, and even the camera getting lost in a battle, only to be rescued by the dog Bebe and the space mice. It's basically an intergalactic resistance version of MTV Cribs. But it's not all fun and games. They have a captured Altean pilot who refuses to talk, ignoring Allura's interrogation. That's where Hunk shines. Instead of torture or pressure, he uses sugar diplomacy. He heads to the kitchen like a MasterChef contestant and whips up a traditional Altean cake. The smell of nostalgia beats blind loyalty, and Hunk's food achieves what no threat could, getting the prisoners to talk. Never underestimate the power of a good snack. Things get tense on the ship when a reformed Altean pilot spills the beans. Onerva tries to silence the guy via mental Wi-Fi, Sith style, but Allura goes into mystic surgeon mode and pulls a dark symbiote from his forehead. Instead of destroying the evil goop, they keep it in a jar. What could go wrong? Meanwhile, the team heads down to a festival on the planet Swathia because they deserve a day off. It's basically the Disneyland of the galaxy. Keith and Hunk get stuck on a kid's ride playing an infernal catchy song. Hunk loves it, but Keith is ready to fall on his sword. Pidge goes on an RPG side quest to get a mining hat for Allura, trading tickets with that merchant from the space mall. And Shiro, the guy is having a midlife crisis and decides to prove he's still young by winning an arm wrestling tournament. Curtis is there cheering him on, providing moral support. However, back on the Atlas, the mood is pure psychological horror. Allura begins to hallucinate Lotor, who acts like that toxic ex who won't let go even after death. He convinces the princess she needs to use the dark goop to defeat Onerva, ignoring all warning signs and common sense. Allura touches the container, has an apocalyptic vision where she drains the life from her own planet, and decides to absorb the dark entity anyway.
Allura!
2 days after the blackout, Allura wakes up with a plan that's Inception meets Stranger Things. Use Voltron and the dark entity she absorbed to track Onerva's location through her mind. Lance and Koran think it's a terrible idea, and they're right, but democracy loses this round. As soon as they form Voltron, the crew is transported on a psychedelic trip through the mental void. The problem is, the psychic connection makes everyone feel the villain's pain and flashes. It's a collective bad trip, where they can hear the universe thinking. They reach a mental barrier that looks like a floor power of dark glass, but ghost hands pull almost everyone down, separating the team. Now, each paladin must face zombie versions of the original paladins in colorful arenas. It's pure violent nostalgia. Fortunately, the lions intervene and bring the old guard back to their senses. At the peak of the witch's mind, Allura reunites with the spirit of her father, King Alfor. Guess what? Even he warns that entering Onerva's head is suicide. But Allura, stubborn as ever, ignores her ghost dad's advice, draws a magic portal on the floor, and teleports the entire team into the enemy's subconscious.
We must enter her mind.
Inside the villain's mind, things turn into a video game with progressive stages. The first boss is Myzax, but the original paladins stay behind to hold the line while the new generation moves forward. They pass through Onerva's memories and discover how she, as Hagar, betrayed and killed her old friends in cold blood. The mood is incredibly heavy. Next, a second guardian appears, a giant armored Zarkon. More brawling ensues until they purify the Galactic Emperor and he returns to normal. Then comes the bombshell revelation. Onerva's plan is to take Lotor's robot and pierce the fabric of reality to find a universe where she can be happy with her family. Basically, she's doing a Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness or a Spider-Verse Kingpin move, destroying all other realities just to have her happy ending. The witch detects the intruders, and the mental security system goes into annihilation mode. With a final assist from the old guard, the paladins manage to log out of the Matrix before being deleted, but the price was high. When they open their eyes in real life, Allura doesn't wake up. She's in a coma, and they now know the end of the multiverse is coming.
Are you okay? Allura?
It's now a race against time and insanity. Onerva is operating in Thanos mode, wanting to reshape reality at any cost. She uses dark creatures to turn the Atlas's Altean crew into obedient zombies and starts draining the ship's crystal energy like a vampire at a blood bank. Things get so absurd that even Merla, who piloted one of the enemy robeasts, takes one look and says, "I'm out," switching sides on the spot. While chaos reigns, Lance gets his Disney Prince moment and wakes Allura from her coma. Hunk arrives to save the day by bringing an entire Balmera, thinking it would solve the power shortage. But Onerva is too overpowered. She mercilessly drains the living planet's energy and uses that boost to fuse her mecha with Lotor's syncline ship. Now she has a turbocharged Megazord and is ready to tear the universe apart. The villain opens a portal to the multiverse and bails. Since Voltron is made of the same material as her ship, it's the only one with a VIP pass to join the party, but the power gap is ridiculous. The solution? Several Balmeras arrive to provide an extra charge, and the ultimate fusion happens. Voltron and the Atlas merge into a colossal robot that would make any Transformer jealous. They enter the rift in a Back to the Future style chase, crossing alternate realities that crumble right behind them. Onerva finally finds the golden timeline. Zarkon, the good version, is alive and happy, and Lotor is a cute child being raised just as she wanted. It seems like the perfect scenario, but there's a cruel twist. This Lotor and this Zarkon sense Onerva's evil vibe and reject her immediately, ordering the imposter's arrest. The witch's heart breaks for good. Snapping like Scarlet Witch losing her kids, she decides that if she can't be happy, no one can, and resolves to erase every single existing reality. We reach the final boss at the source of all realities. Onerva is livid and starts hitting delete on every universe, leaving everything in an apocalyptic white void. But a hero doesn't live by brawling alone. Allura breaks out the Talk no Jutsu. She enters the villain's mind and shows her that life is chaotic and painful, but still beautiful, convincing Onerva to control Z the Destruction. The price is high. In a sacrifice worthy of Tony Stark in Avengers Endgame, Allura and Onerva give their lives to restore the code of the multiverse. They walk into the light, reuniting with ghosts of the past, and everything returns to normal. Cut to 1 year later, a happily ever after epilogue. Keith is reforming the Galra Empire to be the good guys in the new coalition. Pidge is building robots with her family. And Hunk has become the Gordon Ramsay of good, uniting the universe through food. Lance has become a pacifist farmer, keeping Allura's legacy alive. Shiro finally finds peace and marries Curtis. In the final scene, the lions depart into the infinite on their own, leaving Allura's silhouette in the stars to make grown men cry. Game over.